This
Meeting
conference will now be recorded.
Speaking of,
Yes. So hello, everyone. Talking a little bit, let me get my screen shared here. And we have the pleasure of even seeing Rick, which is just wonderful. I'm very happy about that.
And sadly, I'm actually in my office.
Every day we get closer to meeting Rick. Okay. So a little bit about our proposed electronic meeting policy. So this would be applicable to both the TPO policy board and the TTC, but of course, it comes to you all for review first. So it's based on the state code, which does allow for some instances using electronic meetings. Just a few things that, again, are based on state code. A quorum of either the policy board or the TTC would need to be physically present. At the beginning of each meeting, the board would need to vote to allow electronic participation of each of the individuals to verify that the policy is being followed. The individual that would like to use the virtual exemption would need to notify staff the day before or the day of the meeting. And the minutes must also include a statement as to the remote location where the member is electronically connected. So there are a few reasons that you can get an exemption. Again, this is all based off state code, so this is only to allow these exemptions to be put in place. So a temporary disability, a personal matter, and there's no true definition of what is classified as a personal matter, though the use of the personal matter exemption would be limited to 25% of the annual meetings. So for the TTC, that's, you know, based on the number of meetings we have per year. If we had a meeting every month, which we almost never do, that would be 4 meetings a year, but of course we have less than that, so maybe 2. And then of the TPO policy board, it would only be 1 meeting per year since it only meets quarterly. And then the other 2 exemptions would be if a member's personal residence is more than 60 miles from the meeting location. Seems unlikely for most of us, but possible. And a family member's medical condition that would require the person to provide physical attendance for that person's care. So due to the lack of state of emergency that just ended, now we can't do the things that we were doing before. So if we enact this policy, at least people can participate electronically if needed. I know that I have one TTC member that has already expressed wanting to utilize the temporary disability clause of this. So we will have to take this to a vote. If we vote no, then we will not have a virtual component anymore. And if we vote yes, then you can be virtual under these circumstances.
Is there room to, I mean, I was thinking on the way here that it is nice. I really like to meet in person. Makes a lot of sense. But there are moments when it's like, all right, it's 30 minutes from Amherst for me, 30 minutes back, gas, time. It's nice to have that option, especially when you have a busy schedule. Are there other exemptions or, I mean, so it's 25%. It can only be personal matters?
Yes. I mean, unless the other ones apply to you. Like, so A, C, and D, you can use 100% of the time.
Yep. That's medical,
right.
disability, personal matter.
And again,
miles away, that excludes pretty much everyone, most people in this committee.
This is based off state code. So this is just the things that we're allowed to do. Before, we were able to meet virtually only because of the provisions of the state of emergency. And now the state of emergency has ended. So we can't meet virtually except under these guidelines, which are state code. We didn't like craft these.
Sure, I understand.
So,
but we have to follow the TTC. This committee has to be governed just the same way the state code governs state government.
Only because it's an appointed board of the TPO. So the policy board falls under this, and because this is an advisory committee of the policy board, it's our attorney's opinion that this should all go together. So,
So really our only option to meet virtually is to just vote yes,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, you don't do it at all.
Right, okay. Well then, I'm clear now.
I mean, I'm curious about the localities. Like, have you also encountered this, that all your meetings have to go back to being in person, or have you just all been meeting in person anyway?
Well, like our planning commission and meetings like that, they're so much centered around the public. So we really do try to do it in person because of that reason. We've done some kind of combination of both. But, you know, to me, this has been great having this as a virtual meeting as well and having that option. But again, I support in person as much, but virtual is great.
I'd have to agree with Jeremy on that. You know, I found the roadwork in front of the Bank of the James building to be absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
I agree, Ms. Gamble.
I mean, it's a nightmare, and maybe a temporary stay till they get that portion of it done.
Right. And I mean, the other unfortunate part is that if we have people attending virtually, they're not able to vote. So that's also problematic in terms of keeping a quorum. So we kind of need people to be here.
And again, the opinion is that we can't modify that.
Correct.
Okay.
I just have one question, because we actually do have a very similar policy in place for the board of directors for GLTC. And I recall the personal matters, the state code limited it to 2 per year. I didn't know if there was, because that's what our policy says, and it may have just been something that our board decided to limit it to 2.
Right.
So I didn't know if there was a provision that I overlooked, but that's the only thing that sticks out to me as a question. But this is very similar to the policy that we have for our board that was put in place.
Right. Yeah, I can
18, I think it was.
Yeah, I can check into that. I'm not sure about the percentage or how that came about. I mean, for the policy board, like I said, they only meet 4 times a year, so it would only be 1. And for this, I mean, we probably meet 6 or 8 months out of the year. So what that 25% equals out to be will be dependent, but I can definitely check into that. I mean, we can table this if we'd like to.
I mean, my recommendation is that we go greater than 25% and allow people more flexibility.
Right.
If that's possible. If it's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
We can table this and I will, go ahead.
Just have a quick question
Sure.
about the family member's medical condition. As a mom, would it qualify if I have to stay home with a little kid because of a, cold or something like that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's up to, so actually what will happen is at the beginning of the meeting, I guess you'll need to state that and then the board will vote.
Okay.
I would think that,
Just didn't know if you need to have like a doctor's note or something like that.
Yeah.
to it.
We've done this several times with the board of directors, and we just keep it very vague, personal matter. We don't really ask questions what the personal matter is.
Don't want a HIPAA violation.
Yeah, we don't say temporary disability or medical condition. It is what it is. Like, we don't, and even for the minutes, it's just, they're at this location for a personal matter, for temporary disability, and just leave it at that.
right.
Guess the only difference is that with personal matter,
It's
it's
limited, yeah.
limited.
So we do
Where
have to
if you
track
use
that.
the family member's medical
Yeah.
condition,
Yeah,
it will be unlimited.
It just makes,
This person participating remotely can't vote
I believe so,
and they
yes,
don't count towards the quorum.
correct.
Then why would any of that matter?
I
Because
would actually,
you are effectively not participating.
I'm glad you brought that up, because the quorum, what we have in place for GLTC, the quorum piece is the same. You can participate as if you were present. You just don't count toward the quorum assembled.
Right.
But, and we may have done it wrong, I'm not saying that we did it right, but our policy actually allows them to vote, approve motion and second remotely, as long as everything else. So that's,
That's my understanding of it, because that's the way our board operates it,
Right.
is that the person who is participating remotely still participates.
Right.
they just don't count toward the quorum.
You need
So
a quorum present in the physical location, but that person is not precluded from.
Not precluded.
Otherwise, you would not need that. I mean, if you eliminated that person's participation, then none of the rest of that would
Right.
matter.
Okay. another thing we can look into. I mean, I know for quorum purposes,
Yeah.
we need to have enough people physically present. So I will clarify.
This
Yeah,
applies to voting members. So all these policies.
Right.
Yes.
So selfishly, if non-voting members like me, we can attend virtually.
Right. Rick, do you have something?
No, and that was one of my concerns with it is the whole virtual aspect should be permitting the voting rights of members who are participating. You know, the quorum can go either way. I mean, we have had no issues with participation virtually over the last year. Matter of fact, we probably had better participation through the virtual environment. And for me personally, I do have a family member who has Down syndrome and autism, and right now has a broken leg and is confined to a wheelchair. You know, so that's one of the other reasons from personal standpoint that I still continue to support the virtual environment because it's been rather good for me over the last period of time and being able to deal with that.
Right.
So speaking of that, would it behoove us to kind of add me as a voting member? So since I'm also at VDOT, I live about 3 blocks away. It's pretty easy for me to get here. So that way, either way, Rick is here or I'm here,
Right.
I'll have a VDOT voting member.
Well, David, it depends on how this it depends on how this moves forward. If I cannot physically attend the meeting, you're my alternate, so you would be the voting member.
Okay.
But in this case, if I'm going virtually, have the personal medical family issue, I should still be able to vote, you know, through the virtual environment. Just don't count towards a quorum, even though I don't necessarily agree with that either. Because whether I'm sitting in the room or participating here, I'm still having the same conversation with you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it would be great if the state was going to pass some provisions for electronic meetings to begin. That would allow this to be less complicated, but even if they did that this year, it would take a while for it to trickle down. So I think we should table this and I can get more information. We can talk some more with our attorneys and figure out all the clarifications and just how much flexibility we have going forward. Because I mean, we want to be flexible. It's not like a personal opinion that I think we need to meet in person. I'm just trying to follow the rules.
If you want, I can send the policy.
This is Dan Sonnenklaar from DRPT. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I had some technical issues. I was trying to speak up. So I had 2 comments. One is that I do believe the state is looking into passing some sort of electronic meeting guidance that would allow it to be more flexible in the future. We haven't heard what the result of that is going to be yet, but clearly as one of the only people in this group that falls into, I think it was category C, living 60 miles away, we are certainly supporting any sort of provision to be able to participate in these committees and meetings from a distance. And so I certainly support this, and DRPT does as well.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've heard some talk of the same thing, Dan, that the state's looking into passing something, but there's been some talk between the PDCs about whether that would trickle down to us, because that would be for state boards and stuff like that. So I think it'll just take time to tell, you know, what will happen there and whether it will be applicable to us or not.
Well, because you follow under your funding stream is through the state mechanism. My assumption is it would follow down, it would trickle down to the MPOs and PDCs as well.
Right.
I just throw
That
in
is our assumption.
Sure.
I'll say as a member, I like virtual, especially since I have to go Lynchburg, Alta Vista, Lynchburg, back to Alta Vista. But I think if we go completely virtual, you miss some of this, some of the personalization. And I'll tell you, even though I'm from here, having been away 20 years and only being here 18 months, I don't really feel like, I feel a little excluded because I don't know everyone. And I think this gives us an opportunity to see and hear and meet. And so on a personal, that's how I feel. But I do think that for those reasons listed, we should be able to attend virtually when necessary.
Right. Any other comments?
But we agreed that we're going to table this and discuss it again next time.
Okay,
Who knows what the special session will bring?
right. Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, if we don't get something passed at our policy board this month, then it won't get passed until October. So just trying to get things moving here, but I think it would be better if we can give folks more flexibility, so. And somehow I have to figure out how to share my screen again. I think I'd be better at this considering my age, but
It's practice.
yeah.
Do it often, forget.
Usually we have someone else like doing this when we're presenting, but here we are. So on to some fun things to talk about with the transportation alternatives application. Most of you know that the pre-application for transportation alternatives was due July 1. There's 3 applications coming out of our localities. The first being in the town of Amherst. The PDC is actually applying on behalf of the town to install some new sidewalk around the roundabout area. So, you know, there have been quite a few pedestrian improvements around the roundabout in the past couple of years. The PDC did a study on that area a couple of years ago in 2016 about walkability in the downtown area. So this is just an extension of that, of the outcome of that study. So trying to get some new crosswalks put in, some ADA accessible sidewalk and curb ramps, some street trees to just improve the overall look of the area and walkability. Another project, Jeremy, do you want to talk about this one? I'm putting you on the spot.
Well, I can tell you what we're doing. I didn't read your slide. We wrote River Ridge Trail Design and Build Project will provide for engineering design and construction of 5,200 feet, 10-foot wide asphalt. Yeah, so right now we're working on the trail across the river. We got a grant from DCR right now that we're administered. We have about 0.4 miles from River Ridge Park in Amherst County, right on the James River, that goes down the river. The portion that we got a grant for with DCR funds there's a creek crossing, and then there's a major ravine where we're putting in a box culvert, and then we're extending the trail. We're not really sure how far we're going to extend it because we're going to only extend it about 500 to 600 feet. But then we have, depending on cost, if we have enough money left over, we'll extend it as far as the money will go. So we're hoping to get another 100 or 200 feet out of it. We've also applied for a TA application with VDOT. Our goal is to finish the trail, and that would take it all the way down the James River and connect to the existing Virginia Heritage Trail. Our biggest hangup is we're in negotiations with the Lee family still and their attorney on the land. We've received another grant, a land conservation grant for $59,000 with the hope that we can purchase an easement or purchase in fee simple the land from the Lee family. So we're working really hard to try to figure out how to make this connection. And a lot of people have a hard time visualizing it. All we're doing is we're taking it down the Amherst side of the James River, the trail all the way from where it is at River Ridge Park, all the way down until it runs into the Virginia Heritage Trail, which is we're going to cross the second Percival Island Bridge onto the Lee family property. So we're just running it down our side of the river to make that connection. So then you could park in Amherst, you could ride on the bike trail, you could get back on Percival's Island, come up and come into downtown Lynchburg. Be a lot of biking to get to Lynchburg, but be a fun loop. And let's see, so your second bullet point, we've also worked with the city to communicate, the other goal is on the John Lynch Bridge there's a very wide shoulder. We'd love to see that shoulder turned into some type of a multi-purpose trail. The side of the bridge is really low, so we need to put some safety, some type of fencing or something that would make VDOT happy and pedestrians happy to safely cross the bridge. But with that complete, you could make a nice loop, pedestrian walking loop, biking loop from the bridge to the trail. So that's generally what we're working on.
Very good. And last but not least, the city of Lynchburg is submitting an application. This is Brian from the city.
Hi.
He's an engineer. If you'd like to talk a little bit about this project.
It's pretty straightforward. We're right there at the edge of the county, Grays Mill Road area, and right there at Mill Race, we have a lot of industry. There's several shifts that work there. It has gotten quite huge. And while some of the companies that have been making some additions to their properties, that we've asked them to put sidewalk in front because that's what our code says now. But we have the whole rest of the stretch and around the cul-de-sac, and like it says up there, 4,200 feet, because a lot of the people, when they want to get outside or lunch breaks or breaks, they want to walk, they're right in the middle of the street. There's no access for them. So we just thought this was a good idea, try to put some lighting in there too, because of, like I said, the second and third shifts that, people still want to get out and do some exercise, walk. So that's really what we're trying to accomplish with this. We think it's a good project, and we think it'll be a lot of use for it.
So the sidewalks on Mill Race.
Yes.
Great. So those are the 3 projects that are coming out of the region. And for the full application, which is not due until October 1st, but for the full application, we need resolutions from the MPO supporting each of the projects. Our next MPO meeting after this one, which is July 15th, is not until the end of October, so that would be too late. So today, we need to either recommend or not recommend resolution by the Transportation Policy Board for each of these projects. So I suppose we should vote individually on each of them.
Okay.
So I guess we'll go back to start with the Town of Amherst project.
Is there a motion on the proposals for the town of Amherst?
Can I ask a quick question? Is Sarah Carter, I mean, she's obviously not here. Is there anything, have you communicated with her? She's on.
Oh, yeah.
This is what she.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah.
Other feedback?
No, Sarah, I, and the mayor have gone out and, this project was crafted by them. We just wrote the application. So, yeah, they're all in.
Okay. Motion in favor.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We're doing it by locality or by each building?
I think by locality.
Okay. So Amherst is good. Next is Amherst County.
Yep.
Jeremy, would you like to do the honors?
Can I make a motion for my own county?
Sure.
Why not?
Motion in favor.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Amherst County is recommended. City of Lynchburg. Is there a motion?
Motion that we make approval, recommend approval.
And a second?
Aye.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Lynchburg is approved.
Very good. Thank you. Just one other thing that we'll get to matters from the committee in 1 second, but I just want to make you all aware. I don't know what happened to my mouse or why this computer is upset at me, but I just wanted to make everyone aware that there's a survey going around right now about recreation on the James River, or transportation, I guess you would say. It's a MetroQuest survey that the PDC has worked with the county and the National Park Service and VDOT and lots of other local partners, the James River Association. And it's a great survey if you are involved. I mean, I imagine many of you have done some activities in this area. I can send this out in a follow-up email as well, but if any of you are interested in the project or taking the survey, it's a MetroQuest survey, and it's been a really great example of the power of MetroQuest and the things that we can do with a more interactive survey tool. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with it, but VDOT has used it for a long time, and now the PDC is using it for lots of transportation related projects. So just in case you're interested, just wanted to give a little plug for that. And that's all that I have.
Ada, can I say something?
Yep.
In regards to the TAP, just want to make everybody aware that the funding aspect to the TAP is becoming, like through all of our programs, become pretty challenging. We've only got $2 million to be allocated for the TAP applications. And I think out of the 8 TAP applications that we have, we've got 4 that are about anywhere from about 1.5 to 1.8 million. So my point of bringing this up is the competitiveness of the allocations is going to be pretty strong. And one of the things that we'll probably start looking for as we move forward through the TAP are more cost-effective projects that are probably under $1 million that can move forward within a set time frame to go through the PE right away in the construction phase. So just want to make everybody aware that what the limitations are through that program. So I think in partnership, we're going to have to take a look at other funding streams, smart scale revenue share, and like Jeremy said, other grant opportunities that are out there that could help support some of these projects.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Not anything else for me.
Are there any matters from the committee members?
Just to give the PDC a heads up, Mariel and her counterparts over at the town of Bedford and all the other localities in Salem District got communications from Planning Division yesterday spelling out, hey, it's time to start the next round of Smart Scale. It defines how many reapplications and asks for a decision from the local governments. Are these going to be reapplications? And but it also kind of sets a limit on how many new applications Salem District can support in the vetting process, in the pre-app and final app process. So we're getting a jump on that. Carol and Michael are meeting today to discuss how they're going to coordinate with folks like PTC and NPOs.
Great.
So your communication should be coming in the next few weeks. But I don't think in Salem District, Bedford County, I don't think, you've got, which ones did y'all do for Bedford County? Did they do Timber Ridge?
Timber Ridge, yeah. That's in the works of for submittal.
I don't know if that'll be a district, if they'll do it to compete for statewide funds, or if y'all will pull it back to the county to compete in the district only. So
Definitely make that decision soon.
When are those dates again?
I don't. What we're asking from the local governments based on a project pipeline process that we have in place at quarterly meetings is for them to make decisions on old projects by the 16th of July.
But that's for the Salem
That's the
district
Salem
and
district.
during the
You need to
district. Yeah.
understand how he's going to do things. But we've established at least quarterly meetings over the past year where and virtually, thank goodness, that we have kind of vetted localities' project desires and parsed them out by funding source. And I think that's been a real effective communication and planning tool to keep the idea in front of the local governments. These are your funding sources, and maybe that project doesn't fit here, but it might fit in B or C. So.
Rick, do you have anything you want to say about Lynchburg District Smart Scale?
No, I mean, our process has pretty been formulated since round one. We work internally with our group, and then, we work externally as well through the local government entities. We don't have the time frame that Salem District is going through at this stage. We're pretty well vetted on what projects should be moving forward. And of course, we'll be working through the local governments as time frame permits us to do so. Right now, from a staff perspective, location design's working through 4 different rounds of smart scale. We've already got them working on new cost estimations as we move forward through the process. And, as far as the project pipeline projects, we've got 4 projects that are moving forward through that, which you guys should have received emails, I think, last week on setting those meetings up. And while they're not necessarily high priority projects in our district as identified by VTrans, we'll still go through that exercise. But you'll see more information coming out. You know, we don't anticipate having a substantial influx in new applications coming through this next round.
Rick, when is the next round? What are the dates on that?
It's basically next spring. You know, it seems like we've got a 2-year, it runs in a 2-year cycle, but by the time we get through, you know, the one cycle and then the SYIP approval process, we're right into the next, you know, aspect. So coming into next March, April timeframe, the pre-apples open up, and then we'll go through that same process just like we did last year.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
I do have something that came up yesterday from my county administrator about if I don't know how ready we'll be for this round. It wasn't really talked about during this planning effort by VDOT, but we are seeing an influx of residential and commercial development along Perryville Road, and maybe looking at the 221 intersection with Perryville. And I know probably will request the CVPDC's assistance with that. I know it has to start with like maybe a study.
Right.
And, but like I said, probably won't be ready for this round. Just want to put that out there to start the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the important aspects of the smart scale process now. And really it's falling through all of the different revenue streams, TAP, revenue share not as much, but TAP now is becoming very similar to smart scale. And you've got to have a very productive study that's been completed. The readiness aspect has to be pretty advanced. The environmental component has to be acknowledged. And then the cost estimation, we're having to go through, you know, a standardized cost estimation, then a workbook. And, you know, the local governments, while they can do a lot of this stuff, necessarily are really going to require VDOT to come in and be a partner as a part of that process. So one of the reasons why I said, you know, the early aspect in the study is almost an absolute necessity now through the smart scale provisions. And you've got to have a very, you know, substantial alternative. And then the public involvement aspect is going to play into that. So if you're looking at a major intersection like 221 in Perryville, you know, that's probably going to be about a 1.5-year long study effort, public involvement, in order to, you know, substantiate that alternative and get the buy-in from not only the government entity, but the stakeholders as well.
Definitely, you know, especially with the school there as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of different aspects involved there.
All right, anyone else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Put a 2-lane roundabout at 221 in Perryville.
I'll stop. I hate them.
Oh.
I don't know what's so bad. This would just explain our.